Hello again, everyone. My name is Trenz, and well, and welcome to my channel. And to those who've been here before, welcome back to another segment of Trends Talk. Before this, I talked about the topic Impressionism. Oh, yes. Well, we're back again with experimentation with forms Impressionism. And yes, the whole topic has been explained before, but there are additional informations as well as pictures. You see, there are two paintings, and there's one musician over here. The musician is Claude Debussy. Have you ever heard of Claire de Lune? He's the composer. And now on to this. Impressionism, a major movement first in painting and later in music that developed chiefly in France during the late 19th and early 20th century. Impressionist painting comprises the work produced between 1867 and 1886 by a group of artists who shared a set of related approaches and techniques. The most conspicuous characteristic of Impressionism in painting was an attempt to accurately and objectively record visual reality in terms of transient effects of color and light. See? Painting. The main Impressionist painters were Claude Monet, Pierre Auguste Renoir, Camille Pissarro, Alfred Sisley, Berthe Montserrat, Armand Guillaumin, and Frederic Bazille, who collaborated, influenced each other, and exhibited together. Edgar Degas and Paul Cézanne also painted for a time in the early 1870s in the Impressionist style. The established painter Edouard Manet, whose work in the 1860s greatly influenced Monet and others of the group, he himself adopted the Impressionist approach around 1873. And on the right is one of his, not on the right, on the left is one of his paintings. It's one of Edward Manet's paintings. And here we have the chief artist, and yes, that's a picture of Edward Manet, who was born January 23, 1833, Paris, France, and died on April 30, 1883, in Paris. He is a French painter who broke new ground by defying traditional techniques of representation and by choosing subjects from the events and circumstances of his own time. His Le Déjeuner sur l'Herbe, or in English, Luncheon on the Grass, exhibited in 1863 at the Salon des Refuses, aroused the hostility of critics and the enthusiasm of young painters who later formed the nucleus of the Impressionist group. And next, we have more chief artists in this Impressionist painting. We have Claude Monet on the left, Pierre Auguste Renoir on the middle, Camille Pissarro on the right, followed by Alfred Sisley on the left, Berthe Montserrat in the middle, who is in fact the only female Impressionist painter of the group. And then on the right we have Armand Guglielmin. And lastly, for the three pictures and people, you have Frederic Bazille, Edgar Degas, and Paul Cézanne. Up on next is the timeline. By the late 1860s, Monet's art reflected a new aesthetic, which was to be a guiding force in Impressionist work, in which the importance of the traditional subject matter was downgraded and attention was shifted to the artist's manipulation of color, tone, texture, and as an ends in themselves. Also, by the late 1860s, Monet, that's with an O, not an A, Monet, was influenced by the innovative painters Eugene Boudin and Johann Bartholomew Jonkind, who depicted fleeting effects of the sea and sky by means of highly colored and texturally varied methods of paint application. The Impressionists also adopted Boudin's work or practice of painting entirely out of doors while looking at the actual scene instead of finishing up the painting from sketches in the studio, as was the conventional practice. So instead of staying in a was most likely for most people a boring art studio, he decided to finish his painting outside with nature. Also, in the late 1860s, Monet, Pissarro, Renoir, and others began painting landscapes and river scenes in which they tried to dispassionately record the colors and forms of objects as they appeared in the natural light at a given time. These artists abandoned the traditional landscape palette of muted greens and browns and grays and instead of painted a lighter, sunnier, and more brilliant key. In their efforts to reproduce immediate visual impressions as registered on the retina or the eyes of the beholder, they abandoned the use of grays and blacks and shadows as inaccurate and used complementary colors instead. And finally, traditional formal compositions were abandoned in favor of a more casual and less contrived disposition of objects within the picture frame. And here we have the year 1874 and the year 1886. In 1874, the group held its first show independent of the official salon of the French Academy, which has consistently rejected most of their works. So at that time, their works were not considered art. They were rejected. Monet's painting Impression Sunrise in 1872 earned them the initially derisive name Impressionists. So the Impressionist name was first used as an insult to this group from the journalist Louis Leroy, writing in the satirical magazine Le Charivari in 1874. Ah. But these artists themselves soon adopted the name as a descriptive of their intention to accurately convey visual impressions. So, these artists turned that insult into something they can be proud of. They held seven subsequent shows, and the last of these shows was in 1886. By the mid 1880s, sadly, the Impressionist group began to dissolve as each painter increasingly pursued his own aesthetic interests and principles. And here we are, some examples of some of the artworks in Impressionism. Award won it Young Lady in 1866. Young Lady in 1866 is an oil on canvas by Edward Monet in 1866 in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York City. And then we have Claude Monet, Beach at Saint Adressy, Beach at Saint The Beach at Saint Adressy, oil on canvas by Monet in 1867 in the Art Institute of Chicago. And lastly, we have another painting by Claude Monet, which is Impression Sunrise. A museum. The, the picture that I shows a museum visitor viewing Impression Sunrise 1872, oil on canvas by Claude Monet during the exhibition of Impressions Sun 2017 as a musician of modern art André Malroux, Le Havre, France. So this was in a museum in France. Up next, we have music. Impressionism music is a late 19th century classical composition style that focused on creating moods, emotions, and deviating from traditional harmonic progressions. Impressionist, Impressionist works are typically short, lyrical, and connected to nature. Characteristics of the Impressionist style of music: a less structured approach to music, harmony, and experimenting with timbre. And here are the chief artists: Maurice Ravel, Eric Satie, and Gabriel Fauré. And here are the major works in Impressionist music. Claude Debussy, Prélude Le Prince de Faune, Maurice Ravel, Pavane pour un infante de fonte, Jean Sibelius, 13 pieces for piano, Lily Bollwagner, Nocturne, Manuel de Falla, Siete Canciones Populares Españoles, Number 5, and Claude Debussy's Clair de Lune. And here are the historical events. The Impressionist era began in the late 19th century in France, pioneered by the likes of Maurice Ravel and Claude Debussy. Musical Impressionism trailed slightly behind the visual art initiative, where Monet's painting above is from 1872. The real start of Impressionism music came in 1894 when Debussy first performed his piece Prelude à l'après-midi en faune, or Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun. And thank you. That's all for this video. If you like this video, hit the like button, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. And see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.